Welcome back. I'm here with Dan Ashburn, a legend in the space, has been in the Amazon space for over a decade. Lovely to have you here, brother, and just want to pick your brain and hopefully get as much value as possible for the people listening.
Yeah, sweet. Appreciate you having me in. Really good to be
Of
here, man.
course, of course. I mean, you've been in the space for some time. The first question I want to ask you is, how have you seen things change in the last 10 years?
So these things happen in cycles or in chapters or in seasons, however you want to kind of look at it. And there's just been evolutions of effectively macro environment changes as well as kind of like platform tactical changes. But through those two or three different chapters, so you had like the early kind of 2013, 2014, 2015. Then you had like a bit of a surge in 2016 through 2019. Then you had all
Yeah,
the aggregators coming in 2019 through kind of what 22, 23. And now we're in this kind of like AI era
yeah,
that's converging with the social commerce era of TikTok. So you've got these kind of like two mammoth shifts that have happened in the last kind of 2 or 3 years. But one thing I would say is whilst the tactics, the buying environment and maybe the rules will change, largely the strategy has been the same for the entire
yeah.
period of time. And that's kind of really where I tend to kind of focus myself and my team is, okay, are we strategically still pushing in the right direction? But then what tactics or what variables that we can control have changed, and how do we adapt them to our strategy? So yeah, been a lot of change. It's been a wild journey, but it's definitely been an exciting one. And I'll be honest, after almost 10 years, I've never been more excited than I am right now.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I do believe now is the biggest opportunity we've seen in a I always say this, but it is true because e-com is just going up, right?
Yeah,
Amazon is just increasing. Now, are some things harder? For sure. But
yeah.
overall, for everyone who's been in the space for a long time, sales are up, profit is up for a lot of these brands. And if you get better, you just do better. Love the point that like the AI shift and the social commerce. I do see more and more how TikTok Shop and not just TikTok Shop, but even Meta ads, how everything is becoming omni-channel. Like it's great to be on Amazon. You need to be on Amazon 100%. But how can you help Amazon with TikTok Shop or with Meta ads? Because if you combine these 2 to 3 platforms, I mean, results are insane.
No, we're definitely seeing the same. I mean, in Titan Network, we have over 1,000 operators, and we've had a few thousand brands kind of come through our mastermind platform in the last 7 years. And what we're seeing more recently, especially in the last kind of 2 years, is it's now got to a point where if you're in a category that has any level of subjectivity, so by that I mean any kind of design or functionality kind of
Yeah,
taste involved. So I'm buying a home decor product or
yeah,
anything that can be visually demonstrated, and you're not on TikTok, then you're effectively 30 to 40% behind your competitors in velocity because you can't chase those external sales from that external demand. So yeah, we're seeing anywhere from 1 in 3 to one in kind of five uplift on Amazon as a result of that demand on TikTok.
yeah. It's same for us as well. The spillover is crazy because TikTok is a social media platform. It's great. People buy there, but they don't trust it as much as they will trust something like Amazon. What I'm even seeing is some brands don't even have a TikTok shop. They just post
Mm.
content. They get affiliates to post content about their product, and still that overflows crazy to the website, but Amazon mostly. Because you know yourself, Amazon is the king of conversion. People go there to buy. I'm seeing more in 2026 than ever. And this was always true, but now it's more true than ever. Having a good product. Like you have to have a good product. Like 6 years ago, you could get away with hacks. Now you need to have a good product. If not, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah, I think as especially on Amazon as a platform, as their entire kind of core algorithm has become AI led with Cosmo and Rufus and these other kind of engines that they've been slowly but surely rolling out for the last couple of years. Gone are the days now where we're just working based on kind of semantic keyword
Yeah,
targeting, and you can kind of hack your way into credibility and visibility. The
exactly.
AI just understands the relationship and the intent behind the search. And then, interestingly, a big move I saw they did was back in kind of 2012, 2013, you could actually buy advertising on Amazon for off Amazon placements. And then they shut it down, I think, around 2015, something like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that's come back in the last year or so. And
Yeah.
my thesis towards that is they're effectively grabbing the data further up the funnel because they understand the decision is now being made before it gets to the platform. So on platforms such as TikTok and
Yeah,
others,
good
and
point.
obviously ChatGPT and other type of channels, and then they're influencing the result down on the platform. So with that data, they can get even better at understanding intent, and therefore that kind of those days of just like hacking visibility and credibility are over.
That is a great point. They are definitely pushing more and more external traffic, which is great to be honest. I want to ask you, what made you do Amazon? Because if you started about 10 years ago, Amazon wasn't what it is now. Like nobody knew Amazon, especially in the UK, compared to what it is now.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in online and digital for since 2000 and about 2006, 2007.
Wow.
And I was involved in
OG.
a lot of kind of off Amazon e-commerce type activity. I took a local high street jewelers to 100 million sterling online a year, and
Wow.
then I was working with a local garden agency. Actually, we were doing about 500 or 600,000 a month in D2C, and we built a connector to Amazon. It was the first time I'd really engaged with it. This was back in kind of like 2011, 2012. And then someone kind of pointed me in the direction of, well, if you own the product and own the IP, own the brand, you don't share the sales, i.e. the buy box. And for me, that just made so much sense because I just spent the last 5 or 6 years really deep in Google. I used to be big into
Yeah.
SEO, and I just saw it as a search engine, right? So as soon as I heard that, I kind of jumped into a community. I went out to an event in Vegas, and from there, I just kind of went all in on Amazon. We are here today, whatever it is, 10 years later, still kind of at the forefront of figuring out all the different ways of driving profitable growth.
It is impressive because when it comes to community, what you guys do, you're probably the most successful community that I can think of. Because you know yourself, a lot of communities came up in 2019, 2020, when a lot of the core selling was out there. Amazon was like mainstream. A lot of communities out there. Now, you fast forward, now there's very few. And there's very few that are active because I see you guys are doing, every year you're doing the events. Every year you meet up. Social media is active. The website always gets changed. So you can see there's a lot of activity happening. And you guys are actually growing, which is very impressive. How does Title Network work? Like if I'm a brand owner, right? If I want to come in, how does it work?
So there's multiple different levels to Titan, and those levels serve different needs. So as a seller, I fundamentally believe the number one thing we need is community and the shared knowledge of many sellers coming together to discuss what's working. The only way we stay ahead in this game and stay ahead of all the cost compression is by coming together, believing and knowing together we're stronger, and having that collective contribution. So that's kind of the core of Titan, is that kind of belief in abundance and coming together and sharing. But then there's
I like it.
also different information is fine, but how you apply that information is different depending on the stage of business. So a seller doing 100,000 a month is going to apply a strategy or a
Yeah,
tactic different to someone doing $1 million a month. So inside of
great
Titan, we
point.
have Titan 6, Titan 7, Titan 8. We've got almost 100 sellers in our Titan 8 group, which is 8 figures and above, so 10 million and above,
Oh,
many of them doing 40, 50, 60 million. So it's kind of like hanging out in the playground with your friends, which is the
yeah,
community, and then going into the classroom that's relevant to you. And then the third layer to it, which was kind of the secret sauce to all of it really, was if we have a nucleus, a central brain that's collecting all these inputs, someone needs to structure them into
yeah,
a systematic, predictable, repeatable framework. Because if you're trying to build a Ferrari, you can't take a
yeah,
piece from a Honda, a piece from a Ford, a piece from a clapped out kind of banger car, and then expect to
yeah.
build a
Good
Ferrari
point.
engine, right?
Yeah,
You've got to kind of you got to go into all the details and figure out how all those puzzle pieces come together. So what we did is we collected and put together. Titan's not just me. There's over 40 of us that kind of operate and moderate Titan. And
wow.
we have one mission, and that's to simplify and understand
Mhm.
what's working, and then
Yeah,
put those puzzle pieces together into a step-by-step format. And then the fifth layer is technology. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we embarked on building out our own operating platform. It's called Titan Tools. We house our own data. We don't resell other data like Jungle Scout or whatever. And then in the last year or so, that's really enabled us to leverage AI in a way that is not being used anywhere else in the industry. So now we've got fully agentic agents that are fully autonomous and effectively run the platform, and our members get access to that AI.
very interesting. I mean, imagine the amount of data you're getting when you're working with a lot of sellers like that. It makes a big difference. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. What's the biggest exit a brand that was in the community has done? Because I know you guys had a good amount of exits. Even some of the guys that you partner with have exits.
Yeah. So I mean, the biggest exit was over 100 million, about 120, 130 million. That was in the heyday of the kind of aggregators, right?
The Thrasio area.
But yeah. I mean, yeah, it was kind of around that. So, I mean, I've lost count of how many exits there've been. Many kind of mid seven figures, lots of kind of low eight figure exits. Nowadays,
Wow.
it's a bit more sophisticated than it used to be for exiting. You used to be able to sell one of these Amazon kind of businesses for anywhere from 4 to 6 times EBITDA, with
True.
all of its revenue being concentrated on Amazon. And I mean, even when it bubbled out a bit, even more. Nowadays, you've got to have that diversity, right? Like you've got to be omnichannel. You've got to have that spread of D2C, marketplace, TikTok. You've got to have assets like an email list with some sort of
Great point.
recurring purchase value in it. One thing we do, we have Scott Dietz who comes into the network and has done weekly for 5 years now, and kind
Wow.
of coaches our members on corporate valuation, how to structure things like your balance sheet, and how to kind of
That's
set you up to really maximize the value of the business that you're building.
It's a great point. I mean, during the Thrasio era, sometimes you will see 10 to 12 exits for small
Yeah,
businesses on EBITDA, which was unheard of at that time. Right now, any Amazon only business that I see exit, it's usually 1 to 3, maybe
yeah,
4 if it's super solid and has great ARR. But other than that, you're right, you need to be kind of multi-platform. But I do believe if you dominate on Amazon, you will do better in other platforms. And most specifically retail, I'm seeing more and more brands we work with, if
yeah,
they do very well on Amazon, it's much easier for them to show up. Look, these are our reviews. We're number 1 or number 10 in the category. These are our
yeah,
numbers. We want to be in retail. It makes sense. So that data is great for retailers because it's much easier to see the data on Amazon because you're on the website. There is not much data you can really see. Like you wouldn't really be
yeah.
able to see how much you're making on the website unless you share it. Where on Amazon, they can see it and say, oh, 500 plus sold, 1,000 plus sold, the bestseller batch. So retailers,
Yeah.
I'm seeing they're hungrier for these type of platforms and e-commerce sellers rather than just the traditional way.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier like quality of product. I think as a sector or an ecosystem, kind of the Amazon seller, marketplace seller, which if you think about it, it's kind of like 2 or 3 levels deep in e-commerce, right? Because you've got like make money online, e-commerce, then you've got D2C, TikTok,
True.
marketplaces, you've got Amazon. Within Amazon, you've got private label, whole. You're kind of you're down in
Yeah.
this kind of like little corner. I mean, it's a huge corner of an ecosystem, but you've got this corner. But I think one thing that's definitely happened is as we've moved from being kind of focusing on keywords and bids and hacks to actually focusing on building real brands with a real kind of customer avatar that we're trying to serve and
Yeah.
understanding messaging and ICPs and all that sort of stuff. I think the quality of the product has also improved because we've gone from kind of buying and badging stuff off Alibaba to we have anyway in our members to teaching full product design, engineering, development, bespoke kind of products, how to build IP into that product. And that's setting you up for a lot more success in these retailers, right? Because
Great.
they see you as quality to sit on their shelf. And then you back it up with that credibility that you're talking about and all that social proof. And it's just a step in the door. But yeah, I mean,
That
especially as sales get bigger, it's just getting better and better.
it's a great example. You're absolutely right there. I mean, you can still get products from Alibaba, don't get me wrong, but I do believe the number one skill right now for anyone who's selling products is not advertisement or understanding platforms. It's understanding product development and how to
Mm,
get and make the best product that fits the biggest customer needs. If you understand that, you can get everything else. Because if you're amazing on Amazon, if you're the best PPC guy, listing creation guy, whatever you are, but you don't know how to build a product, you're still not going to do as well. Where on the other side, if you're amazing at product, you can outsource a lot of that. There's a lot of guys who understand Amazon. And if your product is good, even if you get the shit guys, they're still going to do a good enough job because your product is good. Where vice versa doesn't work well for me. That's why every brand we work with, they say the number one skill that I would want to get is understanding your customer extremely well. The pain points they're having. Can you serve them? Are you price competitive? Is your product good? And objectively, because every brand owner thinks their product is the best, but objectively, is your product good? Can you stand out? Are you price competitive? If you have all of these things plus supply chain, then I think you have a big chance for success.
yeah, I mean, in Titan, we break it down into kind of three product types, and we're actually kind of collapsing down into two now. But we figured this out a few years ago that effectively there's only three types of products on Amazon. There's a non-subjective, semi-subjective, and subjective. And a lot of this comes back to the way in which consumers are entering their searches into the search bar and then refining their search. So if I said to you black silicon spatula, the kind of age-old silicon spatula, that's a non-subjective product in most cases. You're buying in the first search, you're clicking above the fold, you're only making a couple of clicks before you make a purchase decision. It's a cheap purchase decision, and they all kind of look the same. Whereas if I said to you baby swaddle blanket, which I would call a semi-subjective, that search is very precise in what they're looking for, but that product category has material, color, pattern, boy, girl. So people go, well, there's these categories on Amazon are saturated. They're not. They're wide open, because if you take 36 spots on page one and then you multiply that by a power of 4 into design, color, material, taste, all of a sudden you've created a million different variations with 100,000 different customers that would buy that. And then you've got the subjective stuff, which is a bit more difficult on Amazon, with such as like home decor or gifts for girls, where the actual search doesn't have any really intent, and the search journey is happening like you search, you see something in the title, you go back up to your search, you refine it, you click 3 pages deep, and you end up actually buying it on someone else's product page 30 minutes later. So I think it's about really understanding that, and all the success I'm seeing across thousands of brands. The whole, like the non-subjective commodity products, that's just a race to the bottom on price, right? But those that can get creative, understand they're selling to a demographic and psychographic of consumers, and then design products to their taste and carve that segment. I think, that's where we see the most success. So, I mean, as a tip for the audience, you got to focus down that kind of semi-subjective and subjective end.
Agreed. And I think the most quote unquote saturated markets is where the biggest opportunity is. They're saturated because there's a reason for it. They have the biggest TAM, total addressable market. I mean, supplements is maybe a good example, and everyone's saying, yeah, but supplements, everyone is doing supplements. Yes, everyone is doing supplements, but most of them are not doing it right. Can you carve yourself a niche that makes you 10, 20 million a year in sales? If you do that at the right EBITDA, it's life-changing, right? And a great example is someone like Grooms that exited for 1.2 billion. They got Amazon right first. I mean, I think 50% of their revenue was Amazon. So that was a massive part, maybe 40 or 50%. And they stood out. And I think categories like supplements are popping and health are popping because it's such a big market. Yet there are these players who have been there for 30 years, haven't really innovated. Someone who's very switched on, understands the pain of the customer, understands who they're selling at, create community around it. And that's where somewhere like Bloom comes and destroys the competition because they're different. So there's definitely so much space to grow. And of course, you're not going to get to a billion exit. Like, not everyone is going to get to that point. We're not talking about that, but we're even talking, can we build a 7-figure business on Amazon and then hopefully on TikTok? Because that's how you start.
And to the TikTok point, it's quite interesting. You mentioned it earlier. Where we're seeing people going is even running TikTok to a break-even strategy purely for that Amazon halo. Because one thing about running TikTok, and we've been involved in kind of 8 figures of sales on TikTok. And I mean, across our own brands, we're into 7 already, but it's an absolute nightmare from a demand planning perspective to drive any level of consistency. And these 100%. Businesses typically, we don't have the kind of, we're not big Fortune 500s with the big bank accounts that we can buy 3 years of stock and kind of pull it down. So it's actually very difficult. But even if you break even on TikTok and you kind of yo-yoing on demand, that spillover onto Amazon has been amazing.
This is exactly what I'm seeing. And I do believe TikTok Shop right now, TikTok in general, is one of the cheapest distribution platforms. I almost don't see it as a marketplace. I see it as it's the cheapest ad dollars almost that you can allocate, right? Because now with GMV Max, they kind of merging. But I agree. Even if we have a lot of brands that are losing money on TikTok, but they're just killing it on Amazon because of that. And because Amazon now becomes a 2-3% tacos gains, it makes a huge difference, plus sales are increasing. So I agree. If anyone shows you a graph or display on TikTok Shop, you probably see one day is this, one day is this, something happens, something goes viral is this. Where on Amazon, if you do it right, is usually more like this, right? It's more of a easier to forecast graph and easier, as you said, for supply chain. Because unless you have, as you said, big budget and can take the risk on a year worth of inventory, it's going to be very difficult to predict TikTok Shop. So I agree. Using it as a distribution platform and channel is amazing. But TikTok Shop is not very easy. Like, you need to be incredible at content. Like, you need to have amazing affiliates, create groups of affiliates, understand how GMV Max works. So again, it's a full-time thing. That's why I always say, if you do TikTok shop, make sure you have the time and the operational skills to do it, because it's not as simple as you put your product on TikTok shop, you put on some GMV Max, and people buy it. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah, I think the number one
You,
mistake sellers make with TikTok Shop
yeah,
is they're too conservative out the gate. TikTok
agree.
Shop is an all or nothing strategy. You have to go all in
Yeah,
from day zero.
yeah,
And what that looks like is $10,000 in generating initial orders to get the reviews up on the store, so that when creators are seeing your listing or your offer
exactly.
inside the platform, they're taking you seriously. It's about spending money on platforms like Billo and seeding that profile with quality UGC and building the credibility of the listing, right? And then unlocking the gates at 2 and 10,000 for the outreach, and then being super clear around what type of creator is it that I want to attract and who do I want to approach, and then pay them well. Like, think about, on Amazon, you might be spending 15% on tacos. You're probably spending an extra
Exactly.
15 points on CM1 in terms of logistics, or CM2 in terms of logistics and
Yeah,
stuff. So you can afford to give a creator 30-40% commission on paid sales, and then
correct.
give them 10% on organic sales, but the blended average of the two is 15%, which is the same as your tacos on Amazon. So the number one
Yeah.
mistake I see is everyone's just too conservative in their approach. It's actually quite formulaic in terms of how to do it. But I think everyone just doesn't put enough effort.
Yeah, because when they hear 20 to 30% or 40% commission, they're like, oh no, that doesn't make sense. Because they're trying to make TikTok Shop platform a profit first platform, which is the wrong way to see it. TikTok
Yeah.
Shop helps you become for other platforms to be more profitable and to be seen. Because
It's the demand generator. Yeah, for sure.
exactly, it's a demand generator. And we don't know how long it's going to last, because what happens if tomorrow Amazon comes up with something? Even if, in my opinion, Amazon messed up the social commerce completely, that's one thing they got wrong. They've gotten so many things right, but that part, I mean, they have the connector connections, but that it's okay, but compared to what TikTok Shop does, they missed the mark on that. But you never know. Tomorrow,
Agreed.
maybe they come up with live shopping and they destroy. And also the fact that, as you said, Amazon is now pushing for you to buy external traffic. DSP now is becoming a lot more accessible compared to before. I think what Amazon want to create to a certain extent from advertising is for you to be able, from Amazon, to generate external traffic from Amazon and buy it. Like, they almost want Amazon to be your Meta, your TikTok Shop, everything
Mm.
together, which I understand. So, but it's a very interesting point. You mentioned that you guys have brands as well. Is that the brands you own and the Titan partners own, or how does that work?
So we were one of the first in the space, or the first in the space 10 years ago, to do the whole kind of like full channel management partnership. So for many years we had kind of a minority position in a whole portfolio of brands, and like I said, we had quite a few exits in those. Nowadays we just own and operate our own brands. So we're around 50 million of revenue in our own brand portfolio, primarily across Amazon and TikTok. We're doing a big push out into kind of Meta, D2C, Shopify right now. Which is actually, funnily enough, my background. Yeah, so we're into multi-8 figures. We still, within Tyson, for only available to Tyson members, we do offer kind of elements of service, like we do some PPC management, and it's all coupled around our AI agents now. So members get access to these fully autonomous AI agents. And then we pair a human with it, so we call it AI squared. So it's AI plus HI. There's artificial
Yeah,
intelligence plus human intelligence, and we put those two things together. And then members get like a dedicated Slack channel and stuff. But yeah, primarily it's just our own portfolio now.
that's cool. And which part do you enjoy more? The brand partnership where you help brands, or are you actually running the brands and the e-com side?
It's been a minute since I've been in a Seller Central account clicking because I have our team is 130 people. I've got a 25 person brand management team. Like we're a decent sized team. But where I really enjoy is the strategy. As the kind of playing field changes, I see it as like a game of chess. And a lot of people are in the market playing checkers, where they're just kind of hitting that move in front of them. I much more believe in, have seen more success in chess, where I'm thinking, well, okay, if I make this move, how does it affect the 10th move? So yeah, I sit at the strategic layer of figuring out and simplifying. So examples of that, when Amazon kind of changed TOS a few years ago, 21, I think it was, around rebates and all that, we were like the first to come out with a really solid really well tested launch
Wow.
strategy that was completely compliant. And it's because I can spend $1 million of my own money a month on it, right? In terms of
Of course.
advertising and stuff like that. So yeah, I just enjoy the game, man. Like if you've ever heard like an Alex Hormozy talk about like
Come
game
on now,
theory,
yeah.
I enjoy the game.
I mean, you don't stay in a space for 10 years if you don't. It doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah,
I love that.
exactly.
Then this great point. You're one of the few guys who actually services and has a brand. And I think you should mention it more. Because I saw it on the website that you guys have brands, but I didn't know the revenue. I didn't really know anything about it. I think you guys should definitely share that a lot more. Because you know yourself, most agency service providers, they just have brands they service, but they never sold on Amazon, and they definitely don't
Mm,
sell on Amazon. Like they just
yeah.
get your retainer and that's about it. So whatever data they have is not true. I mean, they get it from their clients, but definitely they're not spending their own money. So that's it. That's very interesting.
There's a difference between running marketing and running a brand, right? Like the marketing is kind of 20-30% of the picture. Demand
Yeah.
planning, cash flow management, negotiation, product development. These are all the kind of actual fundamentals of the business that determine success. You mentioned it earlier. Success on Amazon isn't now in the selling of the product. That bit's easy. The
Yeah.
success is in the buying. It's in all the economics and the finances. And like, look, $1 million brand, it's an amazing thing to have, and cash flow is quite simple. You start getting up to 50 million and start dealing with stuff like tariffs, and maybe you've got a credit line and the interest rates bumped up 10% when they all spiked 18 months ago. Like that's real business, right? And none of these agencies have deal with that because they're not actually running the business. They're just clicking the
Good point.
buttons.
Great point. And understanding cash flow, that's, in my opinion, for most businesses, but specifically for ecom and Amazon, cash flow is the most important part because first of all, you buy your stock in advance. And when you're getting it from a supplier and manufacturer, they're not going to give you great terms. Don't
Yeah.
expect for you to pay them 60 days after you receive it. No chance of that. So you're outlaying the cash already. Understanding the 7DD plus, understanding disbursements, understanding ads, understanding credit cards, understanding so many parts that you might be making 10 million in revenue, but your cash flow negative and your balance sheet is all over the place. But again, you can't know these things unless you go through a profit and loss of a 1 million, 10 million, 100 million brand and understanding how these things are important. Because you know yourself, there are many brands who do crazy revenues, but they're broke. As bad as that
Yeah.
sounds.
It's about even just understanding like your inventory turn cycles, and like
Oh, yeah,
if you're turning twice a year, then you've got too much cash tied up in inventory. And like just
exactly.
understanding these relationships. We actually did a massive series. We did an 8-week cash flow for sellers series. I think it's at titancashflow.com. You can actually go and get in there and get access. But it's an 8-module cash flow course that kind of goes through exactly what you're talking about, everything from P&L to forecasting to demand planning, negotiation, the whole cadence.
Which I know it's the most boring thing for most brands because when you speak with the brand, you mention about cash flow. I know they're like, oh no, we're interested in the sales and the profit, but you don't get one without the other. Now that being said, when you grow, you don't have to be the CFO, you don't have to be the numbers guy, but I always say you need to have someone who understands that part because if you don't understand cash flow in e-com, because service is easier, client pays you, you don't really have stock, it's a bit different. But when it comes to e-com, if you don't understand your cash flow, your costs, your margin, how those margin compress, how they change, your MER, if you don't understand all of these stats, you will struggle, especially when you get bigger. You said 1 million revenue a year, that's easy. The numbers are so simple, they're usually not that big. You get 15, 20, 30, good luck if you don't have
Yeah.
a good cash
Yeah,
flow
you just
system.
scale you just scale the problems, right? So the website is cashflowforsellers.com. But yeah, it's you just take a problem and make it worse, right? Like you got to have those foundations in place. And I see a lot of brands. I see, because of our software is built it's built bottom up from the P&L. So everything we coach is all to do with what's your CM1, CM2, CM3, so contribution margin. These are your gross profit levels. And then how do we remove the constraints?
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you. Explain the CM1 and CM2 because 99% of people don't understand what contribution margin means.
Yeah, sure. So contribution margin is a fancy way of talking about the different levels of profit in the brand. So you've likely heard gross profit, which most people qualify as after advertising. So that's known as contribution margin. Now, gross profit after advertising is contribution margin. So it's before any kind of overhead and fixed costs. So
Which is what matters on
what's
Amazon.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
what is this product contributing in gross profit to the business before I get into my kind of staff overhead and all that stuff. So that's known as contribution margin. Now, if we go a level deeper in that, we can break that down into 3 levels. So contribution margin 1, contribution margin 2, and contribution margin 3. So contribution margin 1 is the percentage of net revenue. So after you discount some refunds, the percentage of net revenue after the cost of the landed goods. So after you've got that thing to Amazon. So in most cases, you want that to be around 70 to 75%. If you're lower than that, then you're going to struggle to compete in ads because you haven't got enough margin down the waterfall. Yeah. CM2 is all of your logistics, pick and pack, all the stuff it costs to store. It's moving the goods and storing the goods to the customer. For my CM2, I typically want that to sit around kind of 35 to 40%. Yeah. Because if I'm going to spend 15 to 20% on advertising, I still want to have 15, 20% gross profit and then 5% overhead and 10% bottom line. I need to have that kind of 35, 40% CM2. And that's where most people get it wrong because they buy wrong at CM1, they ship wrong and store wrong at CM2, and then they wonder why they can't afford advertising because they haven't got any margin left in the product.
I love you saying that. The reason I ask you for this because I've had about a dozen people come in here and nobody even mentioned the word CM1 because they don't know what it means, right? Unfortunately, most people in ecom don't. So that's why I wanted you to explain it because you know exactly what it means. This is exactly what I say to every brand, every friend that's trying to get. If you don't buy right, if your CM1 is not 70% at least, if your CM1 is 40%, you're not going to sell on Amazon profitably. I promise you that. This is the way I simplify it. Make sure when it's after ads, after logistic, after the landed cost, that you have at least 30, 35, ideally 40% margin. I know it sounds a lot, but again, you're going to put the ads, you're going to put so many other things. You have an OPEX to think about as well. And ecom, especially with AI, it's more and more moving to that 10, 15, 5% OPEX, where before you had 20, 30% OPEX, where now you cannot afford anymore. It's a great point. And knowing these numbers, someone needs to know these numbers.
Yeah, I in the beginning of this conversation, I said how excited I am for where we are in the kind of like season of e-commerce right now. And 2 things are happening that really help everything we just talked about. No, 3 things are happening. So COVID fundamentally changed the culture in China and how factory owners view the West. And they're a lot more open towards partnership, exclusivity, putting effort into design. It's a lot easier now to get quality products that are differentiated, visually differentiated, developed in China. So that's kind of factor 1. The second factor is the demand that TikTok generates and content-led kind of demand generation. You're competing for attention. You're not competing on price. So they're less price-sensitive platforms, allowing you to push your blended price and afford you more margin in the entire stack. And then where we used to have to spend 20%, even 30%, I mean, some businesses I've seen 30% on overhead on team. You can now run multi-8-figure brands on 5 or 6% OPEX because of the advancements of AI and technology. Like we can now generate media and content and listing images, and we can run really advanced kind of interrogations against our search term report in Claude Desktop. You can schedule that in Claude Cowork, or if you're using Titan AI, it does all that for you. But you can empower your A players. And then at the same time, you can carve out the B and C players that are holding the A players back and just create more efficiency in the business. Or if you've got an A player team and you love them, you don't have to hire anyone new. You can empower their productivity 10x. And then hopefully over the next year or 2, as they drive more growth in the business, they're more productive because of AI and you're not having to add more overhead with it. So you can just create more margin. There has never been a time in the history of e-commerce that those 2 things have come together at the same time.
I think most people see AI wrong. It helps you because again, I think we're shifted more and more towards strategy and understanding and experience of Amazon. Because if we put 2 people that have, one person has no experience and you have a lot of experience on Amazon, AI is going to be completely different for them. And AI is going to mess up. That's why AI automation softwares are very dangerous, because who's controlling them? Because if the wrong person controls them, your account is going to get wrecked. If the right person is controlling them, and what that means is they actually know what to tell them, and they still check and analyze that they're doing adjustments the right way. Because let's not forget, these are such new systems. They're so new that they're not going to be perfect. You know yourself, you put something in Claude, how many times is 100% correct? It's not, but it does help. Where before
it's
you had to do everything. Exactly. Yeah. Where before 100, you had to do everything 100% yourself, especially reports. Think about reports 5 to 10 years ago. Like, it was crazy to even get a report. Now reports are much easier. I think AI is amazing for data analysis, reports. It's amazing. And now what actually is important to do manually, you can do it much better. And you have a lot more time to do strategy, which I think that's where the game is going. Strategy and expertise of the actual person. That's why now you see brands with the right operators kill it and be a lot more profitable. Because as you said, you can run an 8-figure profitable business with a couple of people, 3, 4, even 2. I've seen some of the brands we work with, they literally have an agency, which is us, and then they have a finance person, and that's it. That's all the overhead they have, which is crazy, right? Because if you tried to do that 6 years ago, it would be impossible.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
just,
And I've been talking about this a lot recently because we've rolled out Titan AI, and the big difference that we've solved is similar to how Elon Musk, he has Grok, right, which is his AI,
yeah,
but then he also has X, which formerly Twitter, and he
yeah,
feeds Grok with the context of Twitter's content, right? So we took that concept and we've got this community, Titan Network. It's very structured. Like I said, we professionally curate all the frameworks and the playbooks. We have the entire business from cash flow to product to law, everything's mapped out. So what we do is we actually embed all of that experience as context into AI. So the AI is now strategically intelligent, because the problem
yeah,
with AI out the box, like a Claude or a ChatGPT, they're like a
yeah.
college graduate. They're full of facts. They've just never done it and don't know how to use them.
Great point.
And that's the difference by adding a human, right? So that's why we kind of go for AI squared, AI plus HI. But yeah, I think where we're going to win with AI, and for anyone that's been doing this, if all you did was go into Zoom or Fathom or whatever your note taker is and download the last 3 years of team meetings that are strategic, where you're kind of talking about PPC, and then drop that, let me keep this simple, into something like an Obsidian Brain, or if you want to get really fancy, a RAG system, and then plug that into your AI, whether it's Claude, I'd recommend Claude. It's going to be 100 times better at working with you strategically than it is just out the box, because it's got a base of experience to pull from. And that's all we've done in Titan AI. We've just structured the largest set of experience in the industry into an AI native platform effectively.
That's a perfect example. I agree. I mean, for anyone at home, instead of starting a new chat all the time, why don't you just download the document with everything you ever said, memory, the context, who you are, and just put that PDF. It's a already that will make a bigger difference. And now, if you're a brand owner, I don't think you should fully focus on AI. I think you should fully focus on the product and making the best possible product, and where you can put AI, put it. But you're right. The opportunity is crazy. What is the goal now? What are you guys prioritizing in yourself personally when it comes to business? Where are you seeing Titan going in the next year? Because 5 years is too long, I think, now to say.
Yeah, so we're heavily leaning into AI. If you go to titannetwork.com and click Titan AI, you can see a bit of a demonstration video there. We have two things that most people don't have.
Yeah.
We have that structured knowledge base of experience on everything
Yeah.
in the business that's kind of, it's a Deloitte or a McKinsey level kind of information bank.
Yeah.
And then we also made the decision 5 years ago and spent $4 or $5 million in building a data lake that is far beyond what the Amazon API can give you. That the Amazon API, if you just use that raw data, it's very messy, it's very unstructured. You can't rely on it, right? They call it the bronze layer. We've created a gold layer, and it's taken us 4 or 5 years to do it. So we can combine those two things together. And then if you then layer on agentic execution, which is where AI agents are allowed to kind of take action, and then layer over human governance, you can get to, it's kind of like Jarvis out of Avengers, right? With Marvel.
I love that.
You can get Jarvis, and we're so close to having it. So we're currently running our portfolio. Every single one of our brand managers is AI enabled, and running alongside Titan AI, and all of our members are as well. And next week we're releasing kind of complete automated scheduled tasks and all this stuff. So we're heavily going down that route. But one thing will always be true is we will always need human connection, human transformation, and the collective contribution of what's working for that AI capability to be effective. You can't replace that with AI. It's a relationship that has to stay together. So we'll continue running events, we'll continue running masterminds.
It's AI plus humans. I think that's where most people are
Yeah,
getting it wrong. It's AI plus humans. It's not, as
AI
Famosi said,
squared.
is the person with tool, right? It's the person with the best tools that wins. And I agree with that. I think it's where the danger is where you over go to AI and you don't know how to control AI and you think you're just saying, Claude, optimize the PPC for me. Oh, what does that mean? What does optimize mean? You need to give it context to what even optimize mean, how often to do it, what are you looking for, what margins do you have. Again, it's all about context and the experience you have within that platform. For the brands that you're currently running, what are you planning to exit them, or are you just trying to run them as big as you can?
Yeah, so we've actually decided to consolidate and focus our efforts. So we've got maybe 14 brands. They kind of span those kind of three product categories that I've talked about. I manage a portfolio of products the same way that a private equity or a fund manager will manage the deployment of capital into a fund. So we use something called a quintile system, and this is available inside of the Titan toolset. And what it does is it automatically, we've got like 700 SKUs. So it
Yeah.
automatically breaks those SKUs down into 5 buckets. That's a quintile buckets, 5 buckets. And then we can say, well, which ones are giving us the most cash flow or cash on cash return? Which ones are giving the most EBITDA? Which ones are the most giving the most contribution margin? Which are performing better at CM2? And we can re-rank the SKUs. And then we're deploying all of our capital into quintile 1 and 2. So we're
Yeah.
backing the winners, and then we're actually culling the losers. And I feel that that's as important, is to kind of cut the ones
100%.
where the return on invested capital, which is a finance term, but the return on invested capital isn't as high. And then we're really backing the ones where we can kind of lean in with content. We can take them to TikTok, we can take them into meta ads, and they have a
I love
clear,
that.
defined audience. And then, yeah, sure, look, we want to exit. There was once a vision of that exit happening alongside the technology and it all being together. And I think
Yeah.
that's probably different now. I think we probably split them out. But
Yeah.
one thing's true, for us to continue to be at the leading edge of strategy and tactics on marketplaces, on TikTok and Shopify, because Titan Network isn't just Amazon now. We call it Titan Omni. It's TikTok, it's Shopify, it's Amazon, it's AI, including AI search. So we're very good at kind of
Yeah.
manipulating the AI search results. So for us to continue to stay at the forefront of that, we have to always be operating brands, because I can't stand
Agreed.
there and tell an industry that this strategy works if I'm not in the game operating it myself and I've tested it with my own money.
If you kind of have to be in the trenches for you to understand what's happening in the game. And it's so important because it just changes so fast. Amazon, TikTok Shop. The difference between TikTok Shop a year ago and now, completely different. How much GMV Max now makes a difference compared to a year ago. Same with
Yeah.
Amazon. Amazon is changing all the time. You know yourself. What Exact a couple of years ago was everyone was using Exact, where now Broad and Auto is performing a lot better.
Yeah.
So, and again, depending on categories, but all of these things are shifting and nobody's telling you they're shifting. By the time you read it on LinkedIn or on Google, it's already too late. It's been shifting for months. So you have to have always an active part. If not, you're going to struggle significantly. At least that's what I've experienced as well. And I do believe now, if you understand product and you understand platforms and you have a team, it's never been a better time to be an e-com and to run a profitable brand. E-com is not a pull your money right away game. It's let's build equity, let's build the right systems and profit margin to then start giving distribution. At least that's the way I see it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's become a game of, if we understand that product is table stakes, meaning that's a non-negotiable, don't
Yeah.
even join the party if you can't do product. It really is now a distribution game. And if we focus on distribution and we focus on kind of understanding who we sell to, and we leverage AI to execute that distribution, there is so much runway in e-commerce and there's so much money to be made. And if you really have a mission behind what you're doing and you understand the problem you solve, you're actually doing a lot of good in the world as well. So I see a really good future for e-commerce, and I'm
I
grateful to
agree
be a
with
part
it.
of it.
My passion is only going higher. The more I do it, the more like I feel like, wow, there's so many new things. Sometimes like there's too many things. It's a lot of fun. Dan, thank you very much for coming over. I think a lot of people love this part because you're someone who's done a lot and you understand the game. So it's good for them to hear these type of talks, the CM1, the CM2, for them to understand all these numbers. For some will be boring, for some will be amazing, but for the right brands, it will make a big difference. It's even just shifting. For me, it's even if you watch this and you get one good idea and you implement it, it's worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you having me on. You can spread the word like this, the more we can hopefully save people from earlier in their journey making some mistakes and wasting a bunch of
Yeah.
cash, and hopefully we can accelerate others and have some impact with it. So I really appreciate what you do.
Well, brother, thank you very much.